It's July 20th, 1944, a sweltering summer day in the Wolf's Lair. Adolf Hitler's fortified headquarters deep in the Prussian forests of East Prussia, now part of Poland. Inside a wooden barracks, the Führer, pale and stooped from years of war, leans over a map table, surrounded by his generals. Among them stands Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, a 36-year-old aristocrat with a piercing gaze and a bandaged hand, the result of wounds from the North African campaign. In his briefcase, a bomb ticks silently, its fuse set to detonate in minutes. Outside, the Third Reich crumbles. Allied forces close in from Normandy in the Eastern Front, and Germany's cities lie in ruins from relentless bombings. Stauffenberg, a devout Catholic and patriot, is about to risk everything in Operation Valkyrie, a daring plot to assassinate Hitler and overthrow the Nazi regime. Welcome to Vestige Files, where we unearth the pivotal moments that shaped history. This is the story of Operation Valkyrie, a tale of courage, betrayal, and a desperate bid to save Germany from its own darkness. To understand this audacious plot, we must rewind to the 1930s, when Germany fell under Hitler's spell. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles crippled Germany with reparations and territorial losses, fueling resentment. Hitler's Nazi Party, promising to restore national pride, seized power in 1933. By 1939, his aggressive policies sparked World War II, with Germany's blitzkrieg conquering Poland, France, and much of Europe. But beneath the surface, dissent simmered. The German military, or Wehrmacht, included officers who despised Hitler's brutality and saw his war as a path to ruin. The Holocaust, escalating by 1941 with the systematic murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others, horrified traditionalists like General Ludwig Beck, who had resigned in 1938 over Hitler's reckless expansionism. The German resistance, a loose network of officers, aristocrats, and civilians, emerged in the late 1930s. Figures like Karl Goerdeler, a former Leipzig mayor, and Henning von Treschow, a staff officer, plotted to remove Hitler as early as 1938, but their plans faltered due to a lack of support in Hitler's early victories. By 1943, the tide turned. Germany's defeat at Stalingrad, costing 800,000 Axis casualties, and the fall of North Africa exposed Hitler's strategic failures. Allied bombings killed 500,000 German civilians by 1944, and the Eastern Front became a meat grinder, with 2.7 million German soldiers dead by war's end. The resistance saw a chance to act, believing a coup could end the war and spare Germany total destruction. Klaus von Stauffenberg became the resistance's linchpin. A decorated officer from a noble Swabian family, he initially supported Hitler's nationalism, but grew disillusioned by Nazi atrocities, including the massacres he witnessed in Poland. Wounded in Tunisia in 1943, losing his left eye, right hand, and 2 fingers, Stauffenberg joined the resistance, his charisma and strategic mind galvanizing the group. Operation Valkyrie, originally a Nazi contingency plan to suppress uprisings, was repurposed by the plotters to seize control after Hitler's death. The plan involved assassinating Hitler, blaming the SS, and using the reserve army to arrest Nazi leaders, establish a new government, and negotiate peace with the Allies. Key figures shaped the plot. General Friedrich Olbricht, head of the Reserve Army's Berlin office, coordinated military support. General Erich Feldgiebel, chief of signals at Wolf's Lair, would cut communications post-assassination. Karl Goerdeler, slated as chancellor, drafted a post-Nazi government plan emphasizing democracy and justice. Henning von Treschow, stationed on the Eastern Front, provided moral backbone, declaring, "The assassination must be attempted at all costs. Even if it fails, we must take action in Berlin." The plotters faced immense risks. Nazi surveillance was relentless, and the Gestapo had crushed earlier resistance efforts, like the 1942 White Rose Group, led by Sophie and Hans Scholl. The stage was set for a desperate gamble, as Germany's fate hung on a single bomb and the courage of a few. By mid-1944, the resistance faced mounting pressure. The Allies landed in Normandy on June 6th, D-Day, and Soviet forces advanced, capturing 200,000 German troops at Minsk. Hitler, paranoid and reliant on drugs like methamphetamine, rarely left his bunkers, complicating assassination attempts. Stauffenberg, promoted to Chief of Staff to General Friedrich Fromm, gained access to Hitler's briefings at Wolf's Lair. Valkyrie's plan was intricate: kill Hitler, trigger the reserve army to secure Berlin, Munich, and other cities, and proclaim a new government to the world. But the plotters were divided. Some, like Goerdeler, wanted a constitutional monarchy. Others, like Stauffenberg, favored a republic. The Allies, skeptical of German resistance, offered no firm support, insisting on unconditional surrender. On July 20th, 1944, Stauffenberg flew to Wolf's Lair for a military briefing. Carrying a briefcase with two 1-kilogram bombs, he entered the conference room, packed with 24 officers including Hitler, Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, and General Alfred Jodl. Stauffenberg, limited by his injuries, armed only one bomb due to time constraints, having the explosive power. He placed the briefcase under the heavy oak table near Hitler and left at 12:37 p.m., claiming an urgent call. At 12:42 p.m., the bomb detonated, shattering windows and filling the room with smoke and splinters. Stauffenberg, watching from 200 yards away, saw bodies flung from the barracks and assumed Hitler was dead. He bluffed his way past checkpoints, boarded a plane to Berlin, and prepared to launch Valkyrie. But Hitler survived. The oak table and open windows absorbed the blast, leaving him with minor injuries: a perforated eardrum and singed trousers. 4 men, including stenographer Heinrich Berger, died, and others were wounded. But the Führer emerged shaken but alive. At Wolf's Lair, Feldgiebel failed to fully cut communications, allowing Keitel to alert Berlin that Hitler lived. In the capital, confusion reigned. Ulbricht, stationed at the Bendler Block, the reserve army's headquarters, hesitated to issue Valkyrie orders without confirmation of Hitler's death. Stauffenberg, arriving at 3 p.m., insisted the coup proceed, believing the blast had succeeded. He and General Friedrich von Witzleben rallied troops to arrest SS and Gestapo leaders, while Goerdeler prepared a radio broadcast announcing a new government. The plot unraveled swiftly. By 4 p.m., Nazi loyalists, including propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, confirmed Hitler's survival via radio. General Fromm, a wavering supporter, betrayed the plotters to save himself, refusing to back Valkyrie. In Berlin, Major Otto Ernst Remer, commander of the Guard Battalion, was ordered by Ulbricht to secure key buildings, but received a counter-order from Goebbels, who connected him by phone to Hitler. Convinced of the Führer's survival, Remer turned his troops against the plotters, surrounding the Bendler Block by 8 p.m. Stauffenberg, Ulbricht, and aides like Werner von Haften fought to hold the building, but loyalist troops overwhelmed them. The coup collapsed as Hitler, enraged, vowed vengeance, broadcasting his survival to rally the Reich. The Gestapo moved ruthlessly. That night, Fromm, covering his tracks, ordered the immediate execution of Stauffenberg, Ulbricht, Haften, and Albrecht Merz von Kornheim. At 12:30 a.m. on July 21st, Stauffenberg faced a firing squad in the Bendler Block courtyard, shouting, "Long live sacred Germany!" before dying at 36. The failure was catastrophic. Hitler's survival emboldened the Nazis, prolonging the war and tightening their grip. The plotters' dream of a free Germany crumbled, and a brutal reckoning loomed. The aftermath was merciless. Hitler unleashed a purge, arresting 7,000 people and executing 4,980 by war's end. The Gestapo, led by Heinrich Himmler, hunted resistance members with savage precision. Henning von Treschow, on the Eastern Front, learned of the failure and detonated a grenade under himself on July 21st, refusing capture. Karl Goerdeler was arrested in August, tortured, and hanged in February 1945. Ludwig Beck shot himself during the Bendler Block siege, and Erich Feldgiebel was executed in September 1944. Families suffered. Stauffenberg's wife, Nina, and children were imprisoned, and his brother Alexander was executed. The Nazis filmed show trials presided by Roland Freisler to humiliate the plotters, broadcasting their sentences to deter dissent. The human cost was staggering. The resistance's failure prolonged the war, costing millions more lives. By May 1945, World War II claimed 70 million dead, including 11 million in the Holocaust. In Berlin, Sophie Scholl's brother Christoph, linked to the White Rose, was executed for his resistance ties. Civilians like Pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a key conspirator, were hanged at Flossenburg in April 1945, weeks before Germany's surrender. Yet acts of defiance endured. Ewald Heinrich von Kleist, a young officer, volunteered for a suicide bombing in 1944, but survived when plans changed. In Munich, Elisabeth Schott, a typist for the resistance, smuggled messages until her arrest, surviving Dachau to tell her story. Operation Valkyrie's failure had immediate consequences. Hitler, believing his survival was divine, intensified the war effort, ordering suicidal defenses like the Battle of the Bulge, which cost 81,000 American casualties. The Holocaust accelerated, with 400,000 Hungarian Jews deported to Auschwitz in 1944. Allied leaders, including Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt, praised the plotters' courage, but maintained their demand for unconditional surrender, wary of negotiating with any German faction. The Soviet advance, crushing 1.2 million German troops in 1944's Operation Bagration, sealed the Reich's fate. Germany surrendered on May 7, 1945, after Hitler's suicide on April 30th. But the cost of delay was immense. The legacy of Valkyrie is profound. The plotters, once branded traitors, are now honored as heroes in Germany. The Bendler Block is a memorial, its courtyard a shrine to Stauffenberg and his comrades. Their actions inspired post-war democracy. West Germany's 1949 constitution, shaped by figures like Konrad Adenauer, emphasized human rights, reflecting Goerdeler's vision. Globally, Valkyrie showed resistance was possible under tyranny, influencing movements like Poland's Solidarity in the 1980s. Historians like Ian Kershaw argue the plot, though doomed, weakened Nazi morale, hastening collapse. Films like Valkyrie, 2008, and memoirs such as Philipp von Boeselager's A Surviving Plotter keep their story alive. The resistance's moral stand resonates. Stauffenberg and Tresco, driven by conscience, risked all to stop genocide and war, knowing success was unlikely. Their failure highlights the difficulty of overthrowing a totalitarian regime. Gestapo surveillance and military loyalty to Hitler were near absolute, yet their courage galvanized others. In 1945, Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, an Abwehr officer linked to the resistance, was executed, but his intelligence leaks aided the Allies. The plotters' sacrifice, costing 5,000 lives, saved countless more by exposing Nazi vulnerabilities. Valkyrie's story is one of defiance against impossible odds. It showed humanity's capacity for resistance, even when hope was faint. Was the plot a noble failure, or a spark that hastened Nazi defeat? Could the Allies have supported the resistance to end the war sooner? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this dive into the heart of Operation Valkyrie moved you, hit that like button, subscribe to Vestige Files, and ring the bell for more stories of history's turning points.